So I'm Ethan Potchman, and I'm one of your co-hosts. The series is sponsored by Integrated Healthcare Staffing, and we're joined as a co-host by Tricia Stackhouse, Vice President Operations from Integrated, and a 25-year staffing veteran with almost 10 years in long-term care. You want to say hello, Tricia?
Yeah, thanks, Ethan. You know, it's interesting, as we were preparing for this, I ran my first obstacle course race this year, and it was pretty daunting. But I learned so much from the other racers that had been doing it so much longer. And it got me thinking that I've been doing this for a long time as well. And I really believe transparency is key. And so I'm really excited to share what I've learned about working with agency staff over the next few minutes with all of the audience here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tricia. She and I have a lot of fun when we talk. So we're looking forward to adding you to that equation and getting your questions. We want to make this a high return on your invested time. What we know is that the current environment requires staffing agencies to be a part of most people's plans. But we also know from our own experience that just posting a shift is not all it takes to make that a successful experience. So today, Tricia's going to share those best practices that will be important for you to apply. So Tricia, we know that everybody probably has a target to be at 100% fill rate and have no gaps anywhere. And for a lot of people, that's not just the target, but it's a bit of a dream. There are people, though, who are achieving that more often. And we thought we'd start by getting some insight from you. And in a future episode, we will have some actual clinicians on who can give us further insight on this very question. But let's do a little Simon Sinek here. And Tricia, can you give us a sense for why did the clinicians that we're talking about choose to be agency clinicians versus working full time? And what are their goals? Because that's kind of the foundation of how we need to attract them and get them interested.
Sure, great question. You know, I think the thing that comes up most often is flexibility and variety. The clinicians want to experience different locations. They want the variety of residents, of facilities that are available. The other thing is that the ability to manage their schedules around their life. So many of our clinicians are doing something else in addition to working. And so agency work allows them the flexibility to have a very flexible schedule that isn't always available when you're a regular full-time employee at a facility. Of course, there's also financial benefits. Having that extra money. A lot of our clinicians are working agency because they're working towards some financial goal, saving for a house, paying for a child's college education, vacations, things like that.
Okay. So as we get into how to appeal to those folks, it seems like there are two moments of appeal. First is that first shift where they are evaluating, they don't know as much, they've never been there. Curious to hear a little bit about the things that will tend to attract them there. And then after that, let's get into what we need to be doing so that they come back, so that they really start to prefer us over time and always want to work at our facility.
Sure. Well, my team always tries to assist staff in selecting the best shift, especially if it's their first shift, because we want them to have that great first experience. And then, of course, after that, we're always here to help them control, you know, where they're working. But really what they're looking for and that initial shift and all their ongoing shifts is security, knowing that when they book a shift, they're going to work the shift. When they get to a facility, that welcoming environment, feeling like they're actually there to contribute, having a smooth shift as much as possible. We all know how chaotic it can be on a day-to-day basis. And then really what we hear a lot is a sense of appreciation. Right?
Okay.
Most clinicians do this because they like helping people. And so knowing they're appreciated is really important to them.
Okay, fantastic. As they're looking and, you know, as we start to give the audience a sense for what they can do to make that first shift more attractive, what are some of the things that the clinicians are looking at and that we're counseling with them about as they make that first selection? What are the tells of a great facility, or, you know, the things beyond just it's near my house or it's the type of work I'm trying to do?
Sure. And of course, those are things that are important to the clinician as well. So we're always looking for what's nearby. But really, probably the number one thing that clinicians are looking for, and they'll make that best first impression, is a shift that doesn't get canceled. Where we lose clinicians and where we have trouble getting clinicians to go back to a facility is when we book a shift and then they don't work.
So that's an interesting situation that we should talk about in just a minute, because we know that sometimes the facilities are working under these circumstances because they need flexibility and things change. So let's make sure that we get back to that and talk about that. When the shift goes through, and I have my experience, and it's a good one. Tell me some of the things that probably are happening that make me excited to go back for the second time, the third time, the fourth time. I think as much as these clinicians are choosing to not be a permanent part of the organization, they're human beings too, right? And there's some things they're looking for that make them fall in love with the facility, and that's what we want to have happen.
So I think probably one of the first things is making sure that when agency staff gets there, you're prepared for them, right? Making sure that you're assigning them to a unit, a floor, a group of residents that are prepared for them, right? Making sure that you're not giving agency staff too much work on their first shift out there, making sure that you're giving them at least a basic overview of the layout of your facility, making sure that your staff isn't giving them the work that no one else wants to do. And I hear these stories very frequently, unfortunately, from some of our clinicians where they went out and they're like, oh yeah, they gave me all the difficult residents.
Yeah, which is understandable, right? Because you probably have and feel more loyalty to your full-time staff. Of course you do. Talk to us though about some of those downsides when that's the approach that's taken. I mean, I can hear myself saying, yeah, I'd want to do that with the agency staff. That'd be good to have them bear those loads and protect my current staff, my full-time staff. But that comes with some consequences, right? And so can you talk to us a little bit about what happens when that's the experience instead of what you recommended?
Sure. Well, I think everyone on the call here today knows that it's really an employee-driven market. Employees have so many options of where they can go and work. And so when they have that bad experience, when they have an experience where they don't feel welcomed, where they don't feel prepared, when they go back to select their next shift, when they go back to fill out the rest of their calendar, they're going to remember that experience. And if it's a great experience, those are the times the clinicians call us and say, hey, I loved XYZ facility. Can I, what other shifts do they have? Can I go back and work there? They were fantastic. A little, appreciation goes a long way when it comes to attracting agency staff. When they have that bad experience, we'll have clinicians call up and say, will you just make a note? I just don't want to go back there any longer.
Got it. So one approach we could recommend to the listeners here, which seems like it's maybe overkill, which would be just treat your agency staff like they're full-time clinicians and do all the things you would do for your full-timers. That may not be possible and may not be realistic. So maybe give us a sense of what you're recommending that can be done with less time that I might have to spend on a full-time person, which is one of the benefits of hiring agency, but also will be sufficient to make that clinician say, that was really awesome. I want to be there again.
Yeah, it's funny. I just got an example that was sent in just the other day, and I made a note to make sure I shared it. One of our clinicians was out at a facility, and at the bottom of the time card, whoever had signed their time card simply stated, thank you so much for all your help. Doesn't cost anything, very simple, but boy, did that make an impact with that clinician that, hey, I was valued here. I made a difference, and that clinician will want to go back to that facility.
All right, thank you for that. That's a great anecdote, and you're right. It's essentially free, but for a human being, it means a lot. All right, so we talked just a few minutes ago about cancellations. And I want to get into that with this audience because I can hear most of them saying, yeah, sometimes I have to cancel and it's beyond my control. Can you talk us through when we do have to cancel, what's the best way to preserve the situation so that I don't get a black mark with that particular clinician? I didn't get a strike against me. What can a facility do to make that work?
I think it actually starts with submitting in requests for staff at the very beginning. So I always tell clients, when you're submitting needs in, make sure that one, they're true openings in your schedule, that your internal full-time staff has had as much opportunity as possible to try and pick up any of those open shifts before you send it over to your agency. So that when the needs come in, we know they're pretty certain that there are gaps in your schedule. Of course, we know that we use agency for flexibility, changes in census, changes in staffing, last minute call offs, a staff member that picks up that last minute shift, which we appreciate that you want your core staff to pick up those shifts whenever possible. But communication is probably key. Let us know as soon as possible when something like that happens. If you have access to our portal, if you work with integrated, go in, cancel that open need so that we're not offering it, emailing, then finding out later on that need is not real, because it does, set the tone. I think the other thing is, if you're using multiple agencies, which I think in this day and age, most facilities are using more than one. If you can choose one or two that you give a little bit of advance notice on, if an agency knows that there are 15 agencies working on this list of needs, then they may be less likely to put a lot of effort into it, because by the time they go to fill it and call and let you know that they've got someone, it's quite likely that it's been filled by someone else, right? But if you have one or two that you work with kind of in a tier one type of situation, and they know you're really relying on them, then it's going to be a lot easier to get some of those shifts filled. Some of the other things that can be done is look for win-win incentives when you have a need that needs to get filled. So one of the simplest things that, again, doesn't cost a facility a lot of money is what we call a guaranteed shift, right? So if you know absolutely this is a shift you're going to need covered, there's no way you're going to get it covered anyway else. Consider marking that as a guaranteed shift, which lets us know and lets the clinician know that this is a shift that is not going to get canceled, right? You're not going to cancel it. The clinician knows they're not going to cancel it. You're much more likely to get someone to pick up that shift. If you have ongoing needs, consider doing something called a block booking. And if you're not familiar with a block booking, it's essentially taking a set schedule that you might have open because you're in the process of recruiting and giving that full schedule to your agency. So, I need someone Thursday through Monday evening shift, and I'm going to need them for at least 4 weeks. That's what's considered a block booking. And that way the clinician has kind of a set schedule. They get comfortable with the residents, with the facility. And if you want, you could tie a completion bonus to it that's tied to perfect attendance. Again, win-win, because you're only paying out that bonus if that clinician fulfills 100% of the shifts in that block booking. Can you do things like pay mileage? Sometimes that opens up the realm of clinicians that are interested in coming to a facility, particularly if you're at a more remote or rural location. The one thing I want to caution everyone on the call about is becoming known as a bonus facility, right? So in the pandemic, we saw a lot of facilities offering bonuses. And what has kind of occurred is clinicians have gotten wise to this. And a clinician that normally would have booked a Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift a week out, 2 weeks out, knows those facilities that wait and tack on bonuses at the last minute. And so they're holding and they're waiting and they're not booking until that bonus is being attached. And it's creating a bit of a vicious cycle that's hard for the facilities to manage, because you don't know you have coverage until the last minute. It's hard for agencies because we're scrambling at the last minute. So it's one of those cautionary tales about bonuses. Use them in a way that's win-win versus creating this cycle.
Well, that makes sense. I think we've seen that in a lot of other aspects of our lives where we and others wait for things, for the sale or something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's good counsel. It sounds like the risk on a lot of these block booking guarantees, a lot of these, it's very low if you already know that you need it, like you said. So not a big deal, but it makes a big difference to the clinician because they go from a state of uncertainty to certainty. So that's a great tip. What do you do, Tricia, if you do have to cancel,
Yeah.
and give you a scenario, 8 hours before you get busy. Do you want to make sure you cancel early? Do you wait until an hour before? Like, what's your advice for how to salvage that situation when you just have to cancel?
As quickly as possible. As soon as you
All
know
right.
that you're not going to have a need, definitely communicate to your agency, whether that's by phone, email, text, a portal, however you communicate. Let us know as soon as possible. We almost always have another shift where we can reroute someone if we have enough notice. So as long as we know ahead of time, we can usually try and salvage that and let that clinician know, hey, this facility had someone internally pick it up at the last minute, but I can send you over here. So they still maintain that financial stability, because of course all of us want to know that we're going to have a paycheck every week. And when shifts get canceled, that can certainly have an impact. Um, the other thing is just making sure that your staff know which agency staff is coming into the building on which shift on which days, because one of the worst cancellations is the one where the clinician actually shows up to the facility on a shift that's been confirmed by a staffing scheduler or a DNS. They get to the door, and whoever it is, and this almost always happens, knock shift on a Saturday, they show up and they're going, I don't have you on the schedule. And they get turned away at the door. So now this person has made arrangements to get there. They've gotten ready for work. They've driven, and now they don't have a shift.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate in frustration. I like the version better where we've got a backup plan for them and we notify them with an alternative and everything works out just fine. One thing, Trisha, that I'd be curious to learn about, people are busy, right? All the people on the Zoom right now are very busy. Have we given them any options, at least with integrated, where they can manage all this in a simple way? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, super excited about this. It was something that we launched this year. So now we do have a facility portal, which can be accessed either by the computer or on a mobile app that gives them full visibility into what shifts are open, what shifts are filled, what shifts need to be confirmed yet. It gives them the ability to add shifts, gives them the ability to confirm shifts, gives them ability to cancel open shifts, all with a few clicks of the button. Super simple to access. It immediately communicates that back to us so that we have that information. So if you're canceling a shift, as soon as you cancel it in that portal, either on the computer or the app, it takes that open need completely off of visibility, so clinicians don't accidentally request it or book it. And then we have, the other thing is it eliminates a lot of the back and forth emails. I cannot even imagine what these facilities email inboxes look like. I know what ours looks like, but I can't even imagine with, on top of staffing and scheduling, all of the other emails that come in. So anything we can do to eliminate some of that, we feel is beneficial.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are very committed to keeping this on time and making sure that you can fit this into your day, and you can count on that. If there are questions and anyone would like to stay after, feel free to stick around and we'll talk through those with you. But we want you to know that there are some ways to reach Trisha, and we're going to let you know the best ways to get in touch with her if you've got questions you'd like to ask outside of this forum. And we also want to share that on October 19th, same time, it's also a Wednesday, we'll be doing our next strategic staffing 24/7, 365 event called The Truth About Compliance in Agency Staffing. And we have great topics like that scheduled for the rest of 2022 with some really exciting ones that are trends happening as we speak that we've been tracking. So, well, thank you. We appreciate you and all the work that you're doing every day, 24/7, 365. And we want to make sure that your staffing choices can be as strategic as possible for your greatest success. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for attending.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing everyone at a future session.
Now you've got a captive audience. So if anybody wants to stick around and ask questions, we're game.
Just type them into the chat. I'm happy to answer anything that you guys might have.
All right. So here's a question, Trisha. Is there a way to cancel already scheduled shifts on the portal? This Amanda at NWL says she can't find the way to do this, and it seems like texts don't go through all the time. So if you can clarify how she could make that happen in the portal, that would be awesome.
So at this time, we have not turned on that feature to cancel shifts in the portal, simply because internally, we want to make sure that we have processes in place to capture those as well. The best way, though, is definitely by phone. So whatever phone number that you typically dial to reach your local branch, that number is answered 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If by chance it goes to voicemail, just know we have people physically in our office 24/7. So if it goes to voicemail, someone will get that voicemail and call you right back.
All right, that's great. Another question coming through, Tricia. How can a facility connect with the staff to make sure they feel like they're taking care of them? What are some of those things, in addition to writing on the time card, that will make a big difference?
I mean, some of the things that really make a big difference is letting us or your agency, whichever agency you're using, know who you like. So, for example, on our system, if a facility lets us know that someone is a preferred staff member, they literally go to the top of the list when we're trying to send out needs. And in fact, people that are marked as preferred for a facility get a shift alert via text anytime that facility puts a shift need in the system. So it gives them a little bit of a leg up. Other things are, again, simple thank yous go a long way. If you have feedback and you want to shoot an email to your local branch, we share that back with the staff and let them know that they did a good job. Anything that you can do to really set that experience apart from another facility is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that in a few weeks, a couple episodes, we're going to be featuring a number of agency clinicians telling their stories directly. And that'll be a really awesome episode to attend and hear some of the specifics they've lived and loved. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. Looks like we might be at the end of our question session. All right. Well, thanks again to everyone. And we don't want the question and answer to have to end here. One of the things that is really remarkable about Integrated, like Tricia said, is you can always reach someone. You can reach Tricia, but you can also reach someone at 3 a.m. if you happen to be working then and really need an answer, even on a holiday. We're available. So please take advantage of that. We want you to feel like we're always here, because we are. If you're working, we're working.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.